Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sophie and I have a daughter Ava who is just asleep over there. I don't know if you can see her. Today I am going to be talking about my birth. If you haven't watched my pregnancy video yet, then please watch that. I will link it in the description below. For those of you who have watched it, you'll know that my pregnancy wasn't so straightforward, but luckily I can say my birth was quick and easy. So we'll start from the beginning. The night before, I had two of my best friends come over and we were on the Nintendo Wii doing the Wii Fit because we thought that the movement may help get her out of me. I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning on the 17th of December and I had some, I thought were Braxton Hicks because, as you'll know, I suffered with very bad Braxton Hicks or preterm labour that kept stopping and starting. So it just went straight over my head. I thought it's probably just the same thing as it always is. At this point I was 3 days late, so I was so eager to get her out. I wanted her out. I woke up with very mild contractions, kind of like mild period pain, and it was happening every 10 minutes. I eventually managed to get back to sleep, I think an hour later, just because I think in my head I thought, well, what if this is it? If this is it, am I going to have her soon? Like, thinking in my head, I was getting really excited and worked up, and I thought, no, just go back to sleep. It's probably nothing. Stop getting your hopes up. I woke up and I started timing my contractions just in case this was the real thing. And as you can see, they were roughly 9-10 minutes apart. Bailey went to work. I then got ready and I went to go and have a coffee. By this point, the contractions were still happening every 10 minutes. I thought, well, okay, we'll leave it a bit longer, see what happens. They weren't any more painful, just the same, exactly the same, 10 minutes apart, very mild. I went and had a coffee with my mum while she was at work, and same thing, I told her, this could be it, just prepare yourself just in case, and I'll give you a call if I need you. When I got home, I thought, okay, I'm gonna make myself some food, so I made myself some food. I did all the things that I do every day. I was moving around a lot because I wanted it to progress. I was going about my normal day, but still timing my contractions. I used my oil diffuser while I had a nap, clary sage and lavender, which I got from Holland & Barrett. Make sure when you do use these that they are tested and they're okay for pregnancy. So I used those and I thought I'm going to go on the Wii Fit again just because I was bored and I wanted to have some fun. So I went on the Wii Fit and I did the jogging game. So after that, I went to the toilet and this is where I thought I lost my mucus plug. It's kind of like a jelly substance in the toilet that I saw. And I thought, I think this is it. I got really excited. Little did I know that was only a tiny part of it. It wasn't the actual thing. So after I thought I lost my mucus plug at 2:24, I continued having the same sort of contractions after. And I just carried on with my normal daily jobs. It got to 6 o'clock and they started to die down. I thought, oh great, here we go again. It's just Braxton Hicks once again. So Bailey came home and I said to him that I'd been feeling these pains. They weren't anything important and he was really tired. So he went to have a nap. I thought, okay, if this is it, maybe I can progress it with a bath. So I sat in a warm bath and my bump was coming out of the water, which I actually kind of miss in a way. Nothing was happening much. I had a few tightenings, but they weren't painful. And I came out the bath and I started cooking dinner. We were having steak that night, I always remember that. And I just plated it all up. Bailey was fast asleep on the sofa and all of a sudden, I actually felt her head drop into my cervix. So imagine this is your cervix and the head, I literally felt like almost like a click, and it went like that. And the biggest contraction I felt, it was so painful. I cannot tell you, and until you experience it, I cannot tell you how painful giving birth is. I instantly went into shock mode because I went from having really mild period pain sort of contractions to instantly having one huge contraction. I was just shouting, I'm going, Bailey, Bailey, Bailey. And he obviously jumped out of his skin because he was asleep on the sofa. I was sweating. I had to literally just put everything down. My whole body was shaking, and I went and sat on the sofa just over there. It's a tiny little chair that we have. And I was so hot from this contraction, and I was thinking, God, if this is happening and this is what they're like, I can't do this. So I waited a few minutes, and I think 3-4 minutes later, I started having another one. I was expecting to have a contraction, it started to get more painful and closer together, but this was just like 10 minutes apart to bang, painful contractions every 4 minutes. They say that you're meant to call the midwife when you're having contractions, and then when they start to get I think 3 to 4 minutes apart, you need to make your way into the hospital.
These were the final readings of my contractions before I went to the hospital.
I timed these contractions from 7 o'clock, and they were literally every 4 minutes, and then 3 minutes from then, and it got to 8 o'clock, and I said, Bailey, we need to go. So he got himself quickly ready. I called the midwives at the delivery suite, and I called a taxi, but I forgot to tell the taxi man that I was in labour. So when the taxi man arrived, I had to quickly get in the taxi before my next contractions. So I came to my gate just here, and all of a sudden I had one massive contraction. So I had to bend over just to relieve the pain. It seemed to be the only thing that worked when I was leaning over something. And I was just taking deep breaths, trying not to make a big scene because I was out in the street. And then the taxi man rolled down the window and goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just in labour." So I get in the taxi, and it's only like a 5 to 10 minute hospital drive. At this point, it's about 8:30. On the way to the hospital, I think I had 2 contractions. And when you're in a car and you can't move, and there's someone else, a taxi man in the car with you, it's awful. You don't want to make a scene. You're a little bit embarrassed. We'd called our parents at this point and said that we were going to the hospital. About 15 minutes later, they had a room ready for me, and I walked into the room and I instantly thought, this is where I'm going to have my baby. And it was scary, exciting. Everything was moving so quickly. From a matter of an hour and a half, I've gone from being absolutely fine, having 10-minute apart tiny contractions, to being in hospital in a bed with extreme contractions every 3 to 4 minutes. At this point, I was so desperate for gas and air. I didn't want to have an epidural or have pethidine or any of the medical drugs really, apart from gas and air. I was so desperate for gas and air. I was actually quite frustrated with the midwives. It almost felt like, because I was young and because I was first time mum, I didn't know what to expect, and I was just over exaggerating about how much pain I was in. So I felt like the midwives sort of left me in the room, and they did. They left me for 45 minutes. Bailey had gone out of the room multiple times to try and get a midwife to come and check me and to give me gas and air, because I was gagging for gas and air. And my mum came in, and she could see how much pain I was in. My eyes were literally rolling because I was in so much pain. I didn't actually feel like I was there. It was a very strange feeling. Finally, a midwife came in the room and she examined me, and to my surprise, I was nearly 10 centimetres already. So I'd actually gone from 2 centimetres to 10 centimetres within a matter of 2 hours. So that explained why I was having such big contractions and why they were so painful. I instantly thought a big to the midwife, because I was telling them how much pain I was in, and it almost felt like they didn't believe me. So when they examined me and told me I was nearly 10 centimetres, I literally wanted to cry, because they gave me gas and air, and I thought, oh my God, I've nearly done this already. When I was little, I was really bad with pain, and my dad and mum always thought I was a big wuss. So I wasn't really sure how I was going to react with labour, but when I got to 10 centimetres with basically no pain relief, I was really proud of myself. So I asked my mum to ring my dad so I could tell him. So I spoke to him on the phone for a few minutes, and these are just things that I remember, but it's all a massive blur. Like, it actually doesn't feel like it happened. It felt like I was in a huge bubble, because especially with the gas and air, you're just out of it. I know a lot of people don't actually get on with gas and air. It makes them feel sick. It really helped me massively with the pain. The more you use the gas and air, the less effect it has on you. So it's best to wait as long as possible and to only use it until after the peak of the contraction. Between each contraction, I was downing Lucozade.
In this picture after Ava was born, you can see in the corner I had 4 Lucozade bottles.
They were meant to be for me, my mum and Bailey, but I ended up having all 4 of them to myself. It got to 10:30 at night. Bailey's mum came to see me as well, which was lovely. But we're only allowed 2 birthing partners in the UK, but Bailey's mum was able to come in for a few minutes. So at 10:30, I was ready to start pushing. Now, the pushing actually felt kind of, in a weird way, better, because you're pushing the pain away. Now, it took me a little while to get the hang of pushing. It's not just like a normal push. It took me a while to understand how to push. And then I was pushing for, I think, an hour and a half, which is quite a long time to be pushing. I thought from One Born Every Minute that they would let you push for an hour. They let me push for, I think it was an hour and about 15 minutes, and Ava's heartbeat was starting to fluctuate a little bit. So they called a doctor in to monitor, and the doctor said to me, "No, you're doing fantastic. Just carry on with what you're doing. If it doesn't help in the next 10 minutes, then I'll come and check again." So that's what he did. He came back in, still hadn't given birth to Ava yet, and I was still struggling to get her past that final part to be able to come out. So the midwives and the doctors decided to do an episiotomy, which is a small cut between the perineum. I was actually fortunate enough to have a local anaesthetic, which I actually was quite happy to have, because I've heard that when the baby's head comes out, it stings so much. So the local anaesthetic kind of took the edge off it, and in a way, although I didn't want an episiotomy, I was kind of happy to have the local anaesthetic. So within 5 minutes, I'd had the local anaesthetic and the episiotomy, and I pushed and her head came out, and it was such a strange feeling, because between her head coming out, I didn't feel any more contractions, and I was getting worried. I was thinking, well, her head's there, surely I need to push her out now. And they said, just wait till your next contraction, and towards the end of your labour, your contractions get further apart, which I don't actually know the reason why this happens, but it does happen. So I gave one final push, and Ava was here. They quickly dried her off. She cried straight away, which was such a relief. Although obviously you don't want to hear her cry, but it's such a relief knowing that she's breathing and she's okay.
That's just her cut. She'll come round. She's just a bit. That's just her cut. She'll come round. She's just a bit.
They put her on my chest, and I was in complete shock. I didn't cry, which I was really surprised about, because I was so convinced that me and Bailey would both cry. But I think because the labour was so quick and everything was so fast and I was in a huge bubble, I didn't cry. I was just in shock more than anything. And Bailey's face when she came out was a picture. I will never forget his face. So she was born at 11:48 p.m. on 17th of December. Now, that was only 12 minutes before midnight, and I remember during my contractions hearing my mum and Bailey either side of me holding my hand, thinking, is she going to be on the 17th or is she going to be on the 18th? Because they had no idea whether she would be here before midnight or not. When she came out, the pain completely went away. I think also because I'd had the local anaesthetic, I was a bit numb down there. They stitched me up. Ava was feeding straight away. It was all such a surreal feeling to think that our little baby girl was here finally. I didn't have time during my labour to sit and think, oh my gosh, she's coming. She's actually coming, because it was such a quick experience. I'm so happy with myself that I actually managed to do it without any other pain relief, just gas and air, because I was so convinced that 1, I would need an epidural, or 2, I would have a cesarean. And I'm so fortunate that I had an easy birth.
Look at the way she's holding her little hands.
Now look at this little monkey. She's not so little anymore. She was £6 9 ounces, and she is now a stone and she's 4.5 months old. So you've definitely grown a lot, haven't you? My mum left about 1 o'clock in the morning and Bailey stayed until 4:30 in the morning, and then we were moved down to the maternity ward where all the other babies and mums were. So that was my birth story. I went from 7 p.m. until almost midnight, so my labour was roughly 5 hours if you don't count the whole day of mild contractions. I hope this has been informative for whoever is going to be giving birth soon, and if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe and share.